Beloveds, good morning. Please rise in body or in spirit with your gray hymnal and join me in singing hymn number 360, We Here We Have Gathered, knowing that especially in these times when the T is being made invisible and forced out of the LGBT, our circle of kinship includes people of all genders. Hymn number 360, Here We Have Gathered.
Here we have gathered, gathered.
Welcome, everyone, to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. My name is Kel Anders, and I'm one of the lay worship leaders. You might recognize me from singing over in the choir or sometimes leading a hymn, or maybe you saw me back there at the table frantically pressing buttons for the live stream on YouTube. So if you were watching a live stream recently and you saw Dusty's name appear at the bottom of your screen, even though you were looking at Allison playing the piano, that was probably my fault for pressing the wrong button. My apologies. But why there's so many buttons that they almost but not quite do the same thing, so you press a button and something else happens entirely. Anyway. Speaking of the live stream, thank you all for your presence with us online this morning. And if you all here in the sanctuary want to turn around those cameras above the clock, you'll be looking at everyone on the live stream. So say hello. We can time travel a little bit for the people who are watching it back later in the future. And isn't it so wonderful that our community can now extend beyond these walls and across time, all the way back to the founding of our congregation in Ann Arbor in 1865. If you're new to us today, please consider filling out our survey at uuaa.org/newcomer survey. And if you're here in person for the first time, you can stop into our newcomer welcome, or even if you've been a few times and you still want to do that and you haven't had a chance to yet, please do. As you exit these double doors, the first door on your left, you'll see a sign that says Redmond Room, and there you will find very friendly people happy to answer any questions that you may have about Unitarian Universalism. It's an honor to be together with you all this morning. What a joy to have this opportunity to connect hearts and spirits and to hold one another up during such trying times. You might have a few things on your mind this morning. Maybe you have an incredible chip dip to make later for a Super Bowl party, or a house still to clean for guests who are coming over, and those are all great things to do. But for now, let's let go of whatever plans we have for this afternoon and take a deep breath with me as we allow ourselves to be more fully present. Thank you, and again, welcome. We are gathered in community, and we are gathered for worship.
Sunday after Sunday, we begin worship by lighting our chalice. We are a pluralistic people, and as such, the flaming chalice may carry a different meaning for each one of us. Perhaps you see the flickering flame as a symbol of hope amidst uncertainty and fear. Maybe our chalice represents the light of reason in a world awash in misinformation and disinformation, where the very concept of reality has begun to lose meaning. It could be the fire of commitment, the warmth of community, the awesome power of transformation within our living tradition. The flaming chalice is everything and more. Many of us are familiar with the story of how the chalice came to be a symbol of the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II. And if you don't know that story, I encourage you to seek it out. But did you also know that the chalice that we cherish today likely emerged from children's religious education programs? I bet you didn't know that. UU curricula from the 1970s encouraged kids to understand the meaning of the chalice. It was our young people that began to craft chalices from clay, paper, and beads. And it was in RE spaces that the ritual of lighting the chalice was born. According to Susan Ritchie, the first documented uses of chalices in the main sanctuary are from Sundays on which the children and youth led worship and demonstrated their practice to the adult congregation. How wonderful that a children's church craft captured the imagination of an entire denomination. The story of the chalice is our story, a story that begins with Nazi resistors and ends with children in a religious education program. This morning, I would like to invite Tricia Smith to light our chalice on the chancel as we honor all the ways that the flame shines light upon our history of resistance to tyranny and injustice. For those of you worshiping from home, I invite you to light a chalice of your own and share your location with us in the chat, or just write "chalice lit" so that we may be together, if not in body, then in spirit. Together, let us say, we light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Tricia. We light our chalice to mark our shared time together. We recite our covenant as a reminder to bring our best selves, even and especially when it's hard. We will always fall short, but our covenant is a commitment to come back again and again, to make right what went wrong, to learn and grow together, and to always keep love at the center of all that we do. So whether you're joining us for the first time or whether you have these words memorized, please join me as we say together, "The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another." I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I have not been my best self lately. And I know that when I am not my best self, I have a hard time seeing the best in other people. Our human brains naturally fill in the gaps, create patterns, categorize. In a world that is so riven with leaders that purposely sow suspicion and doubt, it's difficult to resist falling into an us versus them mentality. But resist we must, because when we other, we dehumanize. When I assume I know someone's heart based on what they look like, or where they grew up, or how they voted, I am failing to see their whole selves. And I am inviting others to do the same to me. Our story for all ages this morning teaches us the true cost of making assumptions about one another. It is a celebration of empathy and understanding, of breaking down stereotypes and opening our hearts and minds to the complexity of every person. Milo Imagines the World, written by Matt de la Peña, illustrated by Christian Robinson. What begins as a slow, distant glow grows and grows into a tired train that clatters down the tracks. A cool rush of wind quiets into a screech of steel, and when the doors slide open, Milo slips aboard. The train bucks back into motion as he and his sister squeeze onto bench seats. The whiskered man beside Milo has a face of concentration. A businessman has a blank, lonely face. The wedding-dressed woman near the far door has a face made out of light, while the dog peeking out of her handbag has no face at all, just a long, lolling tongue. These monthly Sunday subway rides are never-ending, and as usual, Milo is a shook-up soda. Excitement stacked on top of worry, on top of confusion, on top of love. To keep himself from bursting, he studies the faces around him and makes pictures of their lives. At a downtown local stop, the whiskered man folds up his crossword and hurries off the train. Milo imagines him trudging through brown mounds of slush. It's a 5-flight climb to his cluttered apartment, where he's greeted by mewling cats and burrowing rats. Parakeets tweet songs of longing as the man sips tepid soup, hunched over a game of solitaire. Late that night, the door to the parakeet cage mysteriously falls open, and the cats gather on the cold sill to watch the birds fly free above the city. Milo tugs his sister's sleeve and holds up his picture. But even when she turns to look, he can tell she doesn't see. She's a shook-up soda, too. A boy in a suit boards the train with his dad. His hair is a perfect part, and there's not a single scuff on his bright white Nikes. Milo imagines the clop, clop, clop of the horse-drawn carriage that will carry him to his castle. Imagines the clink, clink, clink of the guards slowly lowering the drawbridge. Across the human-made moat, the boy is met by a butler, 2 maids, and a gourmet chef offering crust-free sandwich squares. Milo flips to a fresh page at a bustling midtown stop. When the wedding-dressed woman strides off the train, a band of street performers launches into "Here Comes the Bride," and everyone on the platform stops and cheers. Milo imagines the grand cathedral ceremony where the couple will be pronounced husband and wife. Imagines the groom whisking his new bride to an awaiting hot air balloon, where the pilot loads them in with blankets and blasts the heat. And up, up they go, hand in hand, beyond the concrete walls of the city, into the infinite blue. Milo holds up this picture too, but his sister shoos him away. "Can't you see I'm playing my game?" He watches her thumbs bang around her smudged screen, then turns back to the boy in the suit. They lock eyes for a few long seconds, and suddenly, it feels like the walls are closing in around Milo. The spell is broken when a crew of breakers bounds onto the train, announcing, "You all ready for a show?" Several curious faces look up as the beat drops. And now the girls are walking up walls. They're whirling around poles. They're backflipping over shopping bags. When the train pulls into the next stop, they collect a few dollars and scramble for another car. Milo imagines them going from train to train, doing their act as everyone watches. But even after the performances are over, faces still follow their every move. When they walk down the electronics aisle at the department store. When they cross into the fancy neighborhood. Milo doesn't really like this picture, so he puts away his pad and turns to his reflection in the window. What do people imagine about his face? Can they see him reciting his volcano poem to the class? Can they hear his mom's soothing voice reading him a bedtime book over the phone? Can they smell the chilly Colorado bubbling in a pot in his auntie's apartment near the cemetery? Butterflies flood Milo's stomach when it's finally their stop. He follows his sister onto the cold station platform and up the stairs. Above ground, he's surprised to see the boy in the suit a few paces ahead. He's even more surprised when the boy joins the long line to pass through the metal detector. Milo's sister suddenly bends to give him a hug. "I didn't mean to snap at you," she says. She takes his hand, adding, You have your picture ready? He nods, feeling the warmth of her fingers. As they slowly shuffle forward, Milo studies the boy in the suit, his dad rubbing his thin shoulders, and a thought occurs to him. Maybe you can't really know anyone just by looking at their face. Milo tries to reimagine all the pictures he made on the train. Maybe he could have done it like this instead. The man he imagined living alone is instead part of a happy family. Or this, the bride he imagined marrying a man is instead marrying a woman. Or this, the breakdancers he imagined as outsiders actually live in that fancy neighborhood. Milo's chest fills with excitement when he spots his mom through the crowd. His sister rushes to give her a hug before pulling Milo in too. And it's in this tight tangle of familiar arms that he feels most alive. When they separate, Milo flips through his pad until he finds the right picture. "I made this for you," he says, holding it up. And he watches for the smile he hopes will spread across his mom's face. The end. Milo has an incarcerated parent. He is also a talented artist with a vibrant imagination and the capacity for reflection and growth. Milo's mother is incarcerated. She also reads books to her children over the phone and wraps them in the tangle of her arms and makes them feel alive. They are full human beings, deserving of love and respect and dignity, as are we all. As UU religious professional Laura Conkle writes, "I want us all together to build our resistance to the many assumptions folks make about who is in the room, who is at the table, and who is in Unitarian Universalist spaces. I pray that we choose to build a Unitarian Universalism that holds each and every person sacred and worthy of hospitality and inclusion. May it be so." And now, before we move more deeply into this time of worship and reflection, we bid farewell to the youngest among us as they follow me and the rest of their adult leaders out of the sanctuary to their gathering spaces. Please join us in singing with love and tenderness as we conclude the time for all ages.
This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
About a year ago, this congregation made a commitment to making 2024 a 0 year. Now, this might be completely new to you, or you have been all in from the very beginning. It was a pretty bold vision, and to work, it required the entire community's buy-in. Today, Cal Anders, in yet another of their multiple hats today, will speak on behalf of the climate justice folks and explain just what this 0 year was all about. Please welcome Cal.
I've got props for this one, guys. All right, so it was almost exactly 1 year ago that UU decided to up our game on our Vision 2050 work by declaring 2024 year zero. It was an ambitious year for going all in on both zero carbon and zero waste. And we have been very successful. As far as zero carbon, last spring we expanded to 380 solar panels on UUAA's roof. And everybody, please take a minute to look around and appreciate that all of the lights in this building and all of the video streaming into your homes is now powered by the light of the sun. Now, on the other hand, zero waste also started off with a grand success. We started using more reusable dishes, and we even added a new dishwasher in the kitchen to help wash those dishes. We contracted with a composting company, and everyone learned how to sort our trash into compostables, recyclables, and landfill items. Also, a small note on the composting contractor. You can bring your compost from home and add it to ours if you would like. But I have a little update on zero waste. I'm told that after our initial terrific work in this area, we are backsliding now on zero waste. So today we need to ask you to solemnly recommit to our zero waste goals. So how about a reminder for why zero waste is important? Because we aren't just talking trash here, folks. We are talking about living with better harmony with the planet. Here are a few facts. 38% of food that is grown or produced ends up as waste. Annually, the US alone creates 80 million tons of food waste, or in other words, the equivalent of about 149 billion with a B, meals that end up in landfills. More than 1/3 of all human-created greenhouse gas emission is linked to food. Yes, hurricanes and wildfires are linked to food waste. So, let's do this. Let's all take a zero waste pledge of recommitment right now. I'll read a question and ask you to please respond with, I will. Okay, you ready? Number 1, when you attend a Friday fun night dinner, will you try your very best to remember to bring your own reusable place setting from home? Number 2, when you grab a coffee or a tea or a hot cocoa in the social hall, will you pour it into a reusable ceramic mug? Number 3, will you make sure that all food scraps go into the compost bin? Including those from home, if you want to bring them in. Number 4, when you walk out of the social hall, will you pause to really figure out that, yes, that brown napkin, and that plasticky looking cup, and the papery cup, and that small brown plate, they all belong in the compost bin. And finally, number 5, will you honor the earth and support climate justice by working just a little harder to get UUAA to zero waste? Thank you. We can all do this together. I believe in us.
Thank you, Kel. This kind of work that aligns with UUAA's 2050 vision priority areas is pretty remarkable. And we can only do this work because you all feel it is important enough to continue to pledge annually and to continue to give weekly to the offerings we gather on Sundays. Now, while some weeks or months may be easier than others to give, any amount at any time is gratefully received. It is through the collective spiritual practice of generosity that we are able to work towards these goals. These goals will make a difference, not just to us here and now, but to those who will come after us. There are many ways to give financially. You can go to uuaa.org/giving, text UUAA to 73256, or simply add cash or checks to the baskets as they are passed around. Now, if you are brand new to us or just visiting, in the process of deciding if this congregation may be your spiritual home, please know your presence here is your gift to us, and allow the basket to pass you by. I invite the ushers to come forward now, as today's offering for the programs and ministries of this congregation will now be gratefully given and received. I invite the ushers to come forward now, and as they do, please rise in body or in spirit as we recognize your acts of generosity by speaking together the words we use to dedicate our offerings. Let us say together, "To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings." Thank you. You may be seated. Will you get on the train with me? The doors are opening, and there's room for all of us, everyone on the live stream and everyone here in the sanctuary. Have a seat. Close your eyes for a moment if that's comfortable for you, or just have a downward, less focused gaze for a moment. Settle into your seat. It's more comfortable than you thought it would be. You have a while before you'll get off the train, so spend a bit of time just being quiet. Oddly enough, the whole car is very quiet too. No one is talking. Now, open your eyes or refocus your gaze, and then quietly look around you and choose one person who is on this train with you. Perhaps someone you don't know well. Find that person and then draw a picture of their life right now. Do this quietly in your imagination. If you are watching online and are alone, call to mind someone you know casually, like the mail carrier or a cashier or a neighbor. Draw that picture for a moment. And now, imagine what picture that person might be drawing of you. And a thought occurs to you, the way it did to Milo in our story, that maybe you can't really know anyone by just looking at their face. In a moment, I will ask you to share something with whomever is next to you here on this train. And if you are on the live stream and you're willing to share your thoughts in the chat, that would be lovely. So please share a time when you felt unseen or unheard, or when you felt someone did not see you as your authentic self. When was it? How did it happen? What sorts of implicit biases did others have about you? Or if you prefer, share a moment when you let your own biases get in the way of what you imagined about someone, like Milo did on the train. What did you imagine? And then what happened that showed you that person's authentic self? So now, just turn to someone nearby. There's no need to move around on the train. And ask each other about these biases. It will take a few minutes, but make sure you each have time to share.
It's very true, actually. Yeah.
Dear friends, that piano music is your cue. All right, beloveds, now I'm using my outside voice. You didn't know I had an outside voice, did you? It's time to get off the train. The doors have opened, and as you go into the world again, be aware of the assumptions we all have that ultimately hide or hinder our potential for connection. Like Milo in our story, embrace the possibility of reimagining all the pictures you have drawn on your life's train.
It's almost ironic in the context of recent weeks that we're having a dialogue about feeling invisible. How many of you have felt invisibilized at some point in your lives, not understood, seen, valued, other people made incorrect assumptions about you? Yeah, most of us, if not all of us, I would imagine. How many of us have felt invisibilized, have felt unseen, like we don't matter, like we don't even count by the actions undertaken by our own federal government in recent weeks? Many of us, if not most or all of us. I have also found myself feeling a bit disoriented and confused. How do I preach an everyday sermon about an everyday topic, such as assumptions and biases, when it feels like everything that matters, everything pivotal, is being shaken within and around us? We had an excellent dialogue yesterday hosted by our Board of Trustees on the topic of our community reinvigorating and deepening its commitment to being a sanctuary. It was superb, the largest, most well-attended board event in my 7 years in our community. As I left the event, I was talking with a congregant and I mulled over our shared sense of disorientation. On one level, ordinary day-to-day life continues and goes on. You get up, you go to a job, or if not that, you fulfill other commitments and obligations that you have in the world. Meals are prepared, children are read nightly stories, and then they go to school the next day. Is this what World War I would have felt like in Europe? I wondered out loud. The ordinary continuing side by side with things that were ground-shaking, things that were monumentally important and confusing. The congregant I was talking to replied, "I've wondered the same thinking about the Syrian civil war." It stayed with me that both of us had independently been thinking about something similar, and both of us had been holding wartime metaphors or examples. How do you go through the ordinary as everything around us feels extraordinary? One of my spiritual teachers published a reflection this past week. Some of you have met him. His name is Hunter Flournoy. His reflection was entitled, "How Shall We Live When the World Turns Upside Down?" And I will highly condense and paraphrase, but Hunter offered only three words with a period in between each of the three. Be here now. The be part, being yourself, your authentic best self. Each of us has unique gifts that are different from other human beings. That hasn't changed. You still embody and bring alive those unique gifts in the world. Be that. Here and now. It doesn't take effort to find what needs our unique gifts or talents in the world. If we simply wait, the circumstances will show up. And when they present themselves, the thing that is right for us to be able to do the next right thing, and then do the next right thing after that, and then do the next right thing after that. Keep choosing to do the next right thing, embodying your specific, unique gifts. Would you join me in a breath as we collectively strive to be here now together? Wouldn't the world be a better place if we could authentically relate to one another without having assumptions made about us or being made to feel unseen? This is the planned topic for today, but not unrelated to the larger societal problems around us. This past year, in 2024, a dear colleague of mine, Reverend Nancy McDonald-Ladd, and I published an anthology entitled Seeds of a New Way. And in this anthology are included, among other topics, a discussion about what is called sometimes implicit bias, but also is known as unintentional or unconscious bias. And when Nancy and I we've led workshops and seminars about the book in a variety of places. And when we do, I often pose a question. You don't have to answer this one. You can kind of answer it silently in your heart. But if I invited you over for a home-cooked Indian meal, one that I would personally prepare, how many of you would think that that's a great invitation? You'd love to do that and attend. Now, it's possible you might be excited about that because I'm your minister. It's a chance to spend a little bit of time with me, get to know me better. But even if I wasn't your minister, you know a little bit about my life. Maybe you think I'm an interesting person. It might be interesting to get to know me more deeply. But somewhere in the mix, I would imagine, perhaps more frequently than not, might be automatic, unconscious thinking along the lines of, well, he's ethnically Indian. I think if I went to his house, I could expect an authentic Indian meal, and it would probably be delicious. But how do you know that? I offered no information about my cooking skills. I could be the worst Indian cook on planet Earth. I'm not, but my husband Jeff is actually better at Indian cuisine than I am. This kind of thing falls into the realm of implicit assumptions and/or implicit biases. Really quick, usually unconscious appraisals that are made from a limited set of information. This leads to the other resource I did a deeper dive into for our service today. This is a book from 2021, from the pandemic time period, called The End of Bias. It's by an author named Jessica Nordell. Fascinating person in her own right. She is a Harvard and University of Wisconsin-Madison grad with degrees in physics and poetry. How interesting is that? And as a journalist, she's published in The Atlantic, The Washington Post, all kinds of places. The End of Bias is her first book ever, and it has won more awards than I could even begin to recite. It is absolutely a wonderful read and a lauded read. So the book is a deep analysis on the origins of unconscious bias, how it functions, and its impact societally. Drawing on the fields of neuroscience and psychology, basically, the human brain relies heavily on shortcuts, what are known as heuristics, for interpreting incoming information. These shortcuts exist as an internalized, unconscious mental map of interconnected ideas, what Nordell describes as associations, ideas and concepts that are associated with one another closely. So an example of this, if I was to throw out the word birthday without thinking too much about it, shout out exactly first things you think of. Birthday. Cake, what else? Cards, candles, gifts, balloons, the happy birthday song, friends, relatives. All of this is interconnected in a mental map, subconsciously, unconsciously, around the word birthday. All of that entire mental map is also evoked when one of those concepts pops up. So the concept of birthday pops up, the entire interconnected mental map of that also pops up. Now, our brains do this for everything, including people, and including groups and categories of people. Now, this is where things get complicated. We not only have the implicit mental map for all kinds of things, ideas, concepts, and people, but then our brain also develops another shortcut for the mental map itself, and it's usually at the level of essential qualities. So you've got the concept of birthday, you've got all those things with little lines that are connected to birthday, and then as a shortcut reminder, your brain latches onto some essential qualities of the overall map of birthday, which could be something like happy and fun, or, depending on the circumstances, for a variety of reasons, maybe it's sad and pensive, or any other number of possibilities, but you have an overall level of essential qualities of that entire mental map. And again, we do exactly the same thing for these mental shortcuts, for the mental maps that are about people and groups of people, particularly groups that one does not personally belong to, ones that are called outgroups. And we come up with essential features for the qualities of outgroups as well. For example, I'm not an elder, so I have a mental map for elders, and in addition to the mental map of interconnected ideas related to the concept of an elder, I have some essential qualities that are immediately and unconsciously evoked when that concept comes up. Same for young adult. I am not a young adult, but I have a mental map that includes interconnected ideas about the life of a young adult, and alongside with that, essential qualities that I associate with the entire concept of young adult. We do the same thing for different ethnic and racial groups, for different genders, orientations, and any other important identity markers that you can think of. We're wired to notice difference and similarity. Now, these mental maps aren't just our own personal creation, that I've personally come up with all the little associated concepts with birthday or elder or young adult. They're often heavily, heavily influenced, if not outright created, by the culture that we live in. Now, we'll do another one of these automatic associations. If I say the word divorce without thinking about it, what comes up? Freedom. What else? What else? What? Sadness. What else? Court process. What else did I hear? Anger. What else? Money. Okay, so we could go on for a little while. There might be things like, problems, arguments, assets, divvying up assets. It could be a long concept of interconnected ideas. Now, if I offered the same prompt and I'm in Northern Europe, which has an incredibly different relationship to the concept of divorce than we in the United States have, that mental map is going to look different. Divorces in Northern Europe are genuinely more amicable, generally speaking, amicable. They are less laden with shame. They're less laden with rifts around friendship groups and things like that. Now, if I went to India and I offered the same prompt, what's the mental map around divorce? We might get one that looks even more stringent than what we have in the United States, even more shame attached to the concept. That mental map of divorce, but not just that one idea, many mental maps are deeply influenced by the culture that we're in, that we're a part of. So culture plays a huge role in implicit bias, and what research shows us is that it's not uncommon for individuals to hold an explicit value and at the same time unconsciously behave in a way that is contrary to the explicit value. This is the impact of enculturation. Now, I learned reading Jessica Nordell's book that most of the research on bias is about race and gender. That was interesting. I didn't know that. The least researched area of bias is age-related bias, but we know absolutely know that happens. And with regards to the research on race-related bias, it's possible to have individuals genuinely believe that they do not have racial attitudes or hang-ups, that they are not racist, and yet enact cultural patterns that perpetuate harm and oppression. This is where the rubber hits the road. Culture perpetuates harmful notions of superiority and inferiority that can cause real harm. Now, there's a super tricky, even insidious part to all of this. Our human brains love it. They love it when a shortcut that's already wired into our brain, one of these heuristics, a shortcut, are informed by culture, deeply informed by culture, as we've also acknowledged and discussed, are verified as true. They've done the brain imaging surveys on this type of thing, and the reward centers of the brain light up when a pre-existing shortcut is verified circumstantially as being accurate. Now, because mental shortcuts can also be wrong, and frequently are wrong, the lighting up of the brain center around an existing shortcut, an existing heuristic, it's randomized. Often in day-to-day life, it's randomized when it's going to light up and when we're going to get that reward center. I knew I was right about X, Y, or Z. It's kind of like being at a casino and winning. You lose a lot, but occasionally you win. And when you win, it feels great that you won. But when you're going to win is unpredictable. And so the brain responds to the affirmation of a pre-existing shortcut in that unpredictable kind of way, that, wow, look, I was right. Into this biological, psychological matrix comes Mr. Trump, who routinely reinforces every ugly, long-standing stereotype, bias, and assumption that exists in U.S. society. Things that we actively have to work against, teach against, model to the opposite of, try to bring alive in our own lives, all those worst things that we try to work against, he affirms routinely, explicitly and implicitly, that all of that is just fine and in fact correct. For a lot of people, what would otherwise be randomized reward center hits, it's now like being at that casino and you've just hit the grand jackpot on the slot machine. Ding, 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 ding. It's going off nonstop, the reward center part of the brain. And the message that he intentionally tries to give via this is that you don't have to grow. You don't have to fight with dissonant aspects of our culture or our nation's history. Everything that you implicitly learned about the superiority of the white race, the superiority of men, the superiority of the United States on planet Earth, all of that is correct. By playing on the brain's implicit biases and reward mechanisms, a xenophobic, racist, misogynistic individual is reelected to the presidency. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, are hard. They're hard because they are about shifting culture, and shifting culture is about developing a new and different relationship with the mental maps in our brains. They take effort. It takes a lot of effort. It takes intentionality. It takes time. It takes patience. What I love about Unitarian Universalism is that we have never been a people who are afraid of hard work. Our meeting yesterday on sanctuary and recommitting ourselves to being a sanctuary reminded me of that. So many of us understanding the importance of remaining committed to our ideals for the long haul, to our vision of community in which people of all genders, all orientations, all races, all ages, and all other identities can come together for the common good. It is not a dream. It is not impossible. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're invisible or that you don't matter, because here you do.
Please rise, beloveds, in body or in spirit, and join me on hymn 1053 from your teal hymnal. How could anyone? 1053, how could anyone? Join me in singing with your whole heart. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Beloveds, take a look around this sanctuary. These are your companions on this life journey, this spiritual journey, in which we are learning imperfectly, but hopefully better day by day, how to be human, the best of who we each are as humans. As you see these different faces, may it be a reminder to you to take the time to get to know the story, the experiences, the journey of someone else. Our brains love these little shortcuts, and yet each person we encounter has such a rich and meaningful journey These are journeys worth honoring. May we each strive to do so and do so in the days ahead. Go in love and peace until we are together again.